Welcome to Crew Network's Career Zone, which is designed to give you a realistic, first-hand look at what it takes to be successful in commercial real estate and investment management, asset management, and fund management. We represent Crew Network, a professional organization dedicated to the mission of advancing the success of women in commercial real estate. Our members represent every specialization within the industry. From appraisals to zoning law, you can find talented Crew Network professionals to handle any commercial real estate matter. Crew Network has chapters in 76 major markets in the U.S. and Canada, and we hope you will look for a chapter in your area. I would like you to meet our panelists of Crew Network members who are each recognized leaders in their segment of the industry. Our panelists will introduce themselves, share what their careers are like, and provide information to help you better understand the career opportunities that are available to you in the investment management and asset management worlds. We know it's easier to consider a field when you have role models to guide you. I am Collete Dixon. I'm a principal in transactions for Prudential Real Estate Investors. We are a global investment management firm and part of the Prudential financial enterprise. I'm based in Chicago, and on a daily basis, my job is to manage the national sales of our investment properties. That means on a daily basis, I get to interact with investment brokers, lawyers, investors, and my internal clients, which are our funds and asset managers, which are disciplines that are also represented here on the panel. I will have each of our panelists introduce themselves, and then we'll move on to some questions. So, starting with you, Julie, what do you do?
I'm Julie Rost. I'm a Vice President with Franklin Templeton Real Asset Advisors, which is one of the alternative investment platforms within Franklin Templeton Investments. Within Franklin Templeton Real Asset Advisors, we invest three different ways. One, through private equity commercial real estate, through fund investments and co-investments, real estate investment trusts, and private equity infrastructure investments. I'm part of the team that makes private equity and co-investments in North America and South America. We have a corresponding team that handles investments in Asia and Europe. Our investor base is global, and we make global investments. Typically, our investors are public and private pension plans, as I mentioned, globally based. On a day-to-day, my typical day is all over the map, which is one of the reasons I like what I do most. First and foremost, we make investments. So I'm meeting with investment managers, I'm touring properties, I'm reading investment prospectus materials, and underwriting potential investment managers. I can also be coordinating with my team and responding to our investors, as I mentioned, would be the public and private pension plans globally. So there really isn't a typical day, and that's part of what keeps it exciting and interesting.
So just as one quick question for you, Julie, within the Franklin Templeton real property side, what do you do that may be different from other people who work for the same company?
You know, that's a really good question. And as I mentioned, we are part of the alternatives platform, and our group makes selections with fund investors who then make the property level decisions. So we are selecting managers who have property level expertise, and then we are providing oversight and capital into those property level investments. The only other teams within Franklin that make investments would be the REIT team, which is Real Estate Investment Trusts, where they make active investment decisions within the public markets.
And what skill do you think makes you particularly successful in what you do?
You know, I think it's a combination, and I'm sure my other panelists will share with you as well. You need to have strong analytical and strong people skills. You need to be able to evaluate the numbers and understand what that means and be able to digest it and communicate it both internally and externally, and then also have the people skills to meet with new managers, new investors, and be able to have an instant rapport when you meet with someone.
Great. Thanks, Julie. Helen, what about you?
My name is Helen Garrahy. I'm a Vice President of Portfolio Management with Heitman. Heitman is a real estate investment management company. We're headquartered in Chicago, but we also have offices elsewhere in the US, in Europe, in Asia, and in Australia. Our business line is divided into three separate categories. We've private real estate equity, we have public real estate securities, and we have real estate debt. At the moment, we have assets under management of about 25 billion. I work in the private real estate equity division. I work on a core open-ended fund that was established in 2007. We invest in real estate across the various sectors. We have office investments, retail, multifamily, which are apartments, and industrial. And we also invest in a specialist category that would include things like self-storage buildings and medical office buildings. The properties that I'm responsible for are predominantly retail and multifamily investments across the US, but most of the concentration would be on the coasts and also in the southeast and through the Midwest. As an example, recent investments we've done would include an office building in San Francisco, an apartment building in Houston, some self-storage on the East Coast, and an industrial portfolio in Chicago.
So Helen, what do you think are the skills that make someone successful in your line of business as a portfolio manager?
Portfolio management is an amalgamation of experiences from different sectors, so you need to have analytical ability. Also, to be able to, we deal very directly with the actual asset itself, so you need to have some construction background, to have people skills because you're dealing with institutional and investor clients, you're dealing with property management companies, you're dealing with architects, general contractors, so people skills are helpful, and just a diversity of experience.
So why do you like what you do?
I like what I do predominantly because of the diversity of my roles. So one day I could be involved in underwriting a new acquisition and I'm down in Florida walking 50 apartment units. The next day I'm dealing with a budget for an office building and I'm sitting at my desk working out the analysis. A third day I might be marketing to prospective investors and I'm talking about my role and talking about my assets to an institutional investor. So it's the diversity of what I do attracts me most.
Great. So Dee.
I'm Dee Headley. I'm a vice president at Cassidy Turley. We are a full-service real estate firm. We've got everything from capital markets, brokerage, property management, corporate services. My specific specialty, though, happens to be in the property management field.
And what do you do as a property manager?
Everything. From answer the phone, dealing with large million-dollar capital projects, to someone calling in saying, my commode is clogged and I need you to come right now.
So what are the skills that you think makes a successful property manager?
That would be probably problem solving would be number one. With customer service, you interact with so many different varieties of folks. You talk to the brokers, you talk to contractors that are independent coming into your buildings. You've got tenants, owners, we've got the asset managers. Rarely do we talk to fund managers, but asset management level, often.
So on a daily basis, you find that you're doing a range of things. So what may make your role in property management different than what someone else at Cassidy Turley does?
If you're in property management, there's different sections that you work with. We have everything from industrial, Class A office, government institutions. In mine, I take care of a little bit of everything except for industrial. So in my portfolio, I've got managers that specialize in Class A office, and I've got some that specialize in retail.
So we all do something very different, but we're all in commercial real estate and all of us have been in the industry for a long time. Julie, what made you look at commercial real estate as a career path?
You know, it's interesting. I would say commercial real estate picked me versus me picking commercial real estate. And what I mean by that is I began at CalPERS, the California Public Employees Retirement System, many years ago. I started out as an analyst and I went into my interview and they asked me, what do you know about commercial real estate? And I said, well, quite frankly, nothing. And they said, well, that's okay. We can teach you the commercial real estate. How strong are your analytical skills? So that's how I started in the business. It really picked me.
Was the same thing true for you, Helen? This was by accident?
No, this is by intention. I picked commercial real estate. I was educated in Europe and we have a different template in terms of picking majors and picking university courses. And when I was in high school, I selected property economics. So I was predestined as soon as I left university, I would get a job in commercial real estate. And it was a lucky choice.
I know for me, I had intended to go to law school. I had totally gone to the University of Notre Dame with the intent of becoming a mergers and acquisitions attorney. And it was the day of the LSAT, I decided I just couldn't take it anymore. But I had a finance background, and looking for an opportunity, Prudential asked me if I wanted to be an accountant, and I was like, I don't really think so. And like you, Julie, was like, how about commercial real estate? Oh, okay, whatever that is. It was a great accidental meeting and wound up having been my career path for the past 30 years. And Dee, your move into commercial real estate was a little bit different than all of ours.
Exactly. An opportunity presented itself due to a imminent job change that I needed to do. And I picked real estate because it was stable. It was way more stable than the career path that I had before. But those management skills, that problem solving, customer service, was very transferable.
So when companies are looking for new talent, and each of our firms probably collect talent a little differently, Helen, what do you think Heitman looks for when it's hiring new employees to go into commercial real estate? What skills, what background do you think is important for that?
Well, depending on what level we're hiring for, if, for example, if we're hiring for someone who's got portfolio management experience or a position like mine, we're looking for someone who's had a diversity of experience. Because my role is relatively diverse, we're looking for someone who's been involved in transactions, someone who's got analytical skills, someone also understands structure and construction of a building. So it's quite diverse in terms of the technical skills. But what's common to all hiring would be someone who can demonstrate ethical responsibility, someone who is very much aware of their fiduciary responsibility. We're investing ultimately pension funds, so we're investing funds of individuals who are retired and expecting a return from the money that they trust to us. So ethics and an awareness of that responsibility is paramount.
So it's actually, I think it means that going into portfolio manager is not something that anyone should expect to be able to do right out of college. But you do hire analysts that can potentially move up to that role. Is there any particular skill set aside from lack of fear of numbers that an analyst might want to expect to have?
Well, the technical ability is a given because they'll enjoy their role if they have certain competency in it. But it's also someone who's got aspirations to do something different. So they realise that when they start first, they're running numbers or they're doing analysis for a lot of different aspects of the business, and they get exposure to different aspects of the business. So someone that has aspirations to expand their role and demonstrate an early interest in other areas, that also is something we look for.
And Julie, for a firm like Franklin Templeton, which does have a fairly broad range of skills that are needed to accomplish what you do, what does Franklin Templeton look for to hire someone who could aspire to be you?
Right. Well, I would say that it's not dissimilar to what was just described with Heitman. Really, there are various levels that you can come into the organization, and in a baseline, it really comes in as the analyst position. So obviously, strong technical skills, not being afraid of numbers, Collete, as you described, and the willingness to roll up your sleeves and do anything. Look at the underwriting, tear apart the assumptions, look at cash flow models. It really, having that baseline, strong analytical skill set will well position you for other roles within the department. That being said, my background, as I described, was on the institutional investment management side, and that is one path to where I am today. By converse, another one of my team members had much more of the property level experience, and that's equally as important. Even though we at a fund level are analyzing and making investments into underlying funds that have that property level expertise, we too need to be property experts. So there are multiple paths and channels into the level that I am at, but at a baseline, you really need to have extremely strong analytical skills. I mean, even today, I will do cash flow modeling. I will look at something that's very analytical. It doesn't necessarily mean that I don't do analysis anymore. It's part of what I do.
And I think just one other thing to add there, Collete, is that when you look at someone to interview, you want to see a natural level of curiosity. Mm-hmm. So someone is interested in the role they're applying to, but acknowledge that it won't be just a tunnel job they're going to be doing. They're going to be fitting into something much larger. And if someone is knowledgeable and has just a general knowledge and a general interest in what goes on outside their own window, that's also something we pride on.
And interestingly, the four of us represent different points in the strata of investment management. And one of those base building blocks is the property management world. And you interface from property management with all of us. I mean, you are very important to our ability to be successful beyond just the property level. So Dee, property management, what's really important about the skills you need to be a good property manager?
On that, again, you're at property level issues. So you're talking to tenants are calling in. We have a large intern program, so coming right out of college is a great way to break into property management. You've got to be able to handle multiple projects at one time, cool under pressure. A lot of things are coming at you, but you need to remember property management is not a 9-to-5 job. It would be nice if it was, but unfortunately we have tenants that are in and out of buildings and complexes 24 hours a day. Government tenants have a different level of service that they need to have versus retail that has a completely different skill set that you need from that.
So I would say that property management has a broad range of levels within it. Also, you have the entry level to the regional senior levels. How do you appeal to someone who you say we want to be a property manager, don't you? I mean, how do you convince someone that that's a good start to their career?
You know, some people are wired in such a way that problem solving makes them feel good. And I think that's kind of where we're at. When you walk into your office in the morning, and sometimes you don't, sometimes you stop with the building tour or whatever, but you have 4 or 5 things you'd like to get accomplished, but life has a way of getting involved, and so you may be called at, maybe there's a fire alarm at one building, or you may have an issue where there's a security breach in another. So you have to really evaluate your priorities, and you may have prioritized very efficiently 10 minutes ago, but you've got to start all over, make a decision, and then be moving on. So for someone coming into the property management profession, you're going to have a lot of fun. You'll have a lot of stories to tell your grandchildren, and it's a great way to be the foundation of what you folks do for your returns.
So we get past the property level, and then you get to what we're doing, which is really from Helen and Julie and myself. We're really in the investment management side of it. We work with you, and then we are working with our clients. So I think it's really important that we talk about the fact that it's an awareness of goals. It's a very goal-oriented, multifaceted role that we have in this part of the business, and very focused on what our clients are looking for. So the fiduciary responsibility and appreciating that and having the skill set to engage with that effectively, I think is really important for all of us. So from how did you get where you were? So Julie, we know you started out with CalPERS as an analyst. So Helen, how did you, what was your career path progression from having gotten the educational base that was very focused on commercial real estate? You chose it. It didn't choose you. Take us from where you started to where you are now?
Well, I started on a graduate training program with Jones Lang LaSalle in London, and I rotated through a number of different disciplines within the organization. So I did some valuation appraisal work. I did a stint in property management, in investment management, and in transactions. So I spent 6 years with them, and then I had an opportunity to go on a staff exchange program with Jones Lang to the US, and I moved into a capital markets division within the group in Chicago. I liked it over here, so I stayed. And my natural inclination after that experience was towards the investment management role. I spent a number of years with a development company that was owned by a Japanese parent company that was investment management and also dispositions from the funds. And then most recently, I moved into Heitman to do exclusively investment management.
And Julie, you went from being an analyst to being a fundraiser. You've had a little bit of a shift in your career path. So take us from CalPERS crunching numbers to where you are now at Franklin Templeton.
Sure, it's a little bit of a story of a full cycle, if you will. So as I mentioned, I started at CalPERS as an analyst and learned on the job. I was thankful to have that opportunity in front of me. Met with a lot of great people, and over the time, worked from an analyst into an investment officer position. So at that point, I was responsible for overseeing the management at that time of international, opportunistic, and all of the non-core real estate programs within the CalPERS portfolio. And at that time, I decided to make a switch, which is a big jump, going from making the investment to selling the investment, basically. And it was a huge opportunity. I joined Secured Capital, which then became Eastdil Secured. And I really think it was the investor perspective that made me successful in what I did on the fundraising side. And what I mean by that is every time we met with a potential client to raise money on their behalf and approach institutional investors and sell that product, I was always wearing my investor hat. And I would say to my client, well, this is not going to work, and here's why. Your investor is going to have the following considerations or push back on the opportunity for the following reasons. So even though I went to the sell side, I always felt like I was still the investor in the room, which I think is part of the value. And then you transition to where I am today, it's full cycle. I'm back on the investor side doing what I did many years ago at CalPERS. So I liked it. I've been on both sides of the table, and I think it makes me more efficient in what I do.
I know for me, I thought my career path was a little more in the house traditional. I'm kind of unique probably from this group in that I've spent my entire career with one firm. I started with Prudential as an analyst when we were a very general account, very staid sort of real estate investor. I mean, it was all about the insurance company money. And as the platform grew, I had a chance to participate in development and become a part of the development group. When we created an investment management platform similar to what the three of us are doing now, managing third-party money, getting to move over to actually buy investments, to actually engage in the negotiation, the identification, negotiation, and the actual purchase of real estate was an incredibly cool thing. It was truly like playing Monopoly with other people's money, with a fiduciary bent, of course. So doing that for a good number of years and then moving to the acquisition side solely and spending time in the Midwest, changing regions from Atlanta to Chicago, and then moving back to the disposition side where you're responsible for helping clients, our funds, our portfolios, that's similar to what Helen works for, realize their gains by successfully negotiating the sale of an asset. Has taken me somewhat full circle too, which has really been great. But I've done it under the umbrella of one evolving platform, which has really been a great experience for me. And Dee, you came into this from a totally different path. Is there anything unique you'd like to share about your path in property management?
Well, property management is great in that in my opportunity to take property management on, I started at an entry level. So I was the admin at the front desk and now to VP. So you see every level. I think it helps me to be a better leader where I am with multiple teams because I've been there and I know what that particular job means to that person.
So let's talk about the future. Where do we see opportunities in our respective silos or facets of the industry for young women who are looking to enter into the industry? Where do you see that we can impact the future, or where they can impact the future of the industry in any of our respective roles? Helen, any thoughts on that?
Well, I think one word of advice would be not to get too siloed too soon in your career. So if commercial real estate is the area that interests you, always be open to doing different aspects of it, so that when you do have 15, 20 years experience, you can bring all the different jobs you've done together to a focal point. So I think always be open to opportunities that present themselves. When they do present themselves, they may not seem like opportunities at the time, but in retrospect, you'll appreciate the option you were given.
And everything's a cycle, Julie. So we've kind of hit a flat point. How do professionals prepare themselves for the future from where we are now, from your perspective?
Well, I think we have to continue to build upon our skill set. As Helen mentioned at the outset, I really want to underscore this point. Intellectual curiosity will carry you through many different cycles of the business. So while we did go through the global financial crisis and there was a downturn, obviously we think there's going to be an uptick in the cycle. I think you need to be open. You need to express that creativity and quest for knowledge and be willing to take on things within your company that nobody else wants to do. Because I find that the person who steps up and volunteers and is willing to learn and take on an extra assignment, even though it's not within your role, that's where you're going to grow and become more valuable to your company.
And property management is kind of the base of what we all do, Dee. How do our young leaders prepare themselves for the future in a property management opportunity?
Because we're that foundation, somebody's always going to need to have property management at whatever asset that they have. In order for you to be successful, we have to be successful here. So there's a great opportunity for college students to come into property management and become very successful. You need to have an expertise with your particular building type. Or, as you said, having several building types under your belt also helps as well, so that you're not siloed in one particular one. For me, I like to see the young folks that I work with being very curious. You can hire an HVAC company to take care of a building, but it's better if you understand those basic concepts so that you can make sure that you're working with the right company, because ultimately we're going to try to keep that NOI down so that the cap rate on that particular asset is going to be where you folks need it for your investors.
So let's talk about relationships. Real estate is based on relationships. And that means that we tend to give business, find business, share business contacts. We get business from relationships. Relationships are driven by trust. How did you find your best tools in building the relationships that have made you successful? Julie, any thoughts?
Well, I think that you have to go into it understanding that networking is vital. You need to have many different networks within your industry, professionally, and you need to understand it's not an overnight success. Whatever you're looking for, whether it be finding a job, placing a deal, you need to work that network and give as much as you take, if not give more. And I think sometimes folks get a little too short-sighted with networking and expect one contact to turn into a deal, and that's not going to happen. Collete, as you described, you can't build trust in one meeting. It really is a very lengthy process by which you need to be able to give information and give value to the person you're networking with just as much as you expect something to come back to you. So it's a very broad foundation, and it's something that you should strive to do every day. Just as you do your daily tasks, you should always be building and reinforcing and expanding your personal network.
So what has Crew Network done for you in that form?
Well, I can honestly say that I wouldn't be here without networking, and I didn't learn to network before I joined Crew. I've been a member of my local chapter since 1998, and let me explain my networking story. So at the time, I had left the position that I was in, and I was unemployed, looking for a job. There were a lot of folks that went through that in the global downturn, and it was through a personal relationship that I had with someone who was already on the Franklin team. She was based in Singapore, and she called me and she said, "I know someone who just left in New York. You are perfect for this position. I'm sending in your resume. Give it to me now. We'll send it tonight to the New York team." The job didn't even go to the formal network at that point. There was a formal process, and it did get posted on the web, but I knew about that opportunity before that posting, if you will. So I really credit my personal network and being out there and letting folks know what I was looking for, what I was capable of doing, and all of the criteria, and it came to me.
Has Crew Network been a key part of your relationship building? You said they helped you to learn how to network, but has there been any other aspect of being a part of Crew Network that has seemed to have helped you be a success?
Absolutely. And so as I mentioned, I started in 1998 in the Sacramento chapter, and then I was fortunate enough to be on the Crew Network board for 2 years. And I think it was through that experience that I was confident enough to go after the position that I am in now. One of the critical components of what we do, one aspect, is an emerging manager program. And what's very important to that emerging manager program, which we reach out to the community and select new managers who are women, minority, or disabled persons owned. It really was my connection through Crew and that visibility and being able to source new managers into our program that really came full circle for me. I would not have had that touch point if I wasn't a member of Crew.
Helen, you've been a member of Crew Chicago for a while. What are your thoughts about relationship building and Crew Network and networking?
Well, when I came to Chicago, I joined Crew Chicago within about a year. My network when I joined, coming from a different outside of the country, was very small, and immediately I had an established network, and it was friendships. It was just industry knowledge that came to me. It was just establishing a base. But I think one thing we should remember about networking is that it happens at every level. And you must be aware that the first person you meet in your first job, the woman or the guy who's sitting next door to you, are your network of the future. And you don't always think, well, I can only network with the CEO, because today's Cube buddy is, a CEO 10 years from now. And also your expectations for your network shouldn't be huge. It's just establishing, it's a building block, it's a wall that will work to your benefit in the future. And you have to give in terms of network as much as you take. And that's been my personal experience with Crew Chicago.
Any thoughts, Dee, on networking and relationship building?
Networking is absolutely critical at the property management level. You have to know a little bit about everything, and nobody can know a lot about everything. So it's great. You have this network of people who are experts in whatever piece that you need to know. Environmental is not our specialty, but it's very, very critical for us to be able to deal with environmental problems at a property level the correct way. And Crew Network they're a phone call away, and they're going to be able to answer your question. No matter whether you do business or not, sometimes you're just trying to get a resource so that you can get some information so you can make an informed decision. And that's really helped for me. I also love connecting people who need things. and mentoring. So I'll have somebody come up to me and say, you know, I've got this problem, not sure what to do with it. And you know what? I know exactly who can help you with that. So for me, that's a personal, it makes me feel good that I can put those two people together. Now, whether I never track it, do they do business together, whatever, that doesn't matter. What's most important to me is I've connected them and done a service for them.
And it's also your network gives you a competitive edge.
Yes.
Because everybody will have the base skills that are required for the job that you're applying for. But you may not hear about the job job may not hear about you without your network helping you.
And it's really been amazing. While I have never had a deal come my way out of Crew, the depth of resourcing of information for any number of things that need to be accomplished through having a network that is established, be it part of Crew or an outgrowth of Crew or engagement in other organizations, has really been key to success. Women don't advocate that strongly for themselves because we're afraid of being boastful, but you can advocate to your network. And it's amazing how getting that information out to those people who you are interfaced with, you have relationships with about what you're doing because they know what you're doing, is so key to potentially heightening your profile within your own firm, because they'll hear about it the other way. And if you're afraid of appearing boastful, just let somebody else know what you're doing that you feel comfortable with, that you trust. And it's amazing how that information gets out there. There have been incredible times within the Crew Network relationship network that I've been able to pick up the phone and call someone and say, I have a question, and can you help me with this? And to get an answer back in 30 minutes, that's the answer that someone else has been trying to get for 2 weeks, that more than pays for the time it took to actually build the relationship. So it cannot be, I think, minimized that this is such a huge part of being successful in this industry, because this whole industry is truly built on relationships. So any closing thoughts that we want to leave with our potential candidates? Investment management and asset management and property management are incredibly diverse. They require a lot of skills, require a lot of time. You got to build those skills, but they're key to the progression of commercial real estate. And with that, I think we've got a great opportunity for people to consider this as a career path for them. Any other thoughts we want to share?
Yeah, I would say that, you know, the baseline and what you're hearing from all three of us, I've been hearing intellectual curiosity, having a strong foundation, the technical and analytical skills. But over and above that, for women who want to come into the business, I would say trust yourself and take a risk. Whether that means taking a position that's commission only, or it's a little outside your comfort zone, you may not think you'll be able to do it. I think that you're stronger than you think you are, and being a risk taker will move you forward faster than if you didn't.
And also, I think the range of opportunities that commercial real estate offers. You can work on technical work, you can travel a lot, because ultimately what we all invest in is bricks and mortar on the ground. So you go to see assets, you're at your desk, your exposure to clients. It's very diverse, and that makes it interesting, and I enjoy it.
And it can be a satisfying career. You know, and when you go home at the end of the day, you can feel good about all the things that you've done for your tenants, your clients. Real estate's a great career.
Thank you to our panelists who have volunteered to share their time and this information with us today. We hope that you enjoy the Career Zone, which is sponsored by Walmart Realty, a premier sponsor of Crew Network. Please contact the Crew Network office for further information, and we look forward to seeing you at a future Crew Network convention or at a local chapter event. Please consider commercial real estate. It's a great opportunity for an excellent and fulfilling career. Thank you very much.